November 20th, 2001. This is an email from Peter Kent. I only make the statement that I can be all you need because of what you have told me about me. I would hope that I can. I would hope that you prefer this thing that is pushing my keyboard away from me at the moment while thinking of you and this evening. My comments regarding the use... yeah, that's a little too racy. It would seem that abstinence might be one of those things. However, I do not wish to enlarge the stress in your life. I can only promise... Sorry. I will always remember the first time I laid my tongue upon your lips, the heat, the response, the noise. It is something I will always treasure and look forward to time and time again as a way to let you loose in a very personal manner. You and I will have to come to some kind of, at least, understanding of what you need and are allowed to do. I wish to be all of that for you. It would seem that is something that you would like to have total trust in. While I have desires to seek that feeling in others, the intensity of the feeling that I have with you only make it that counterproductive for my spirit. I wish for us to be the sexiest, horniest, and most faithful people on the planet. I wish that when we hold hands, the feeling is renewed. You are an extremely special person. I was reminded of that again while walking with you and Peter B. yesterday. Thank you for what you are, from the bottom of my heart. Please understand that when it comes to money, honor and integrity come first. I will always honor my financial responsibility, and I will always know that you are fair as I am in dealings with this instrument. At no time will I ever be unfair or dishonest. It would be a joy and a relief for me to trust you to handle all of it. However, I do not think you want to. I look forward to being with you this evening. Peter Kent. And I wrote back, you are poetry in its truest and most beautiful form. Your words make me smile, like the note you left on the counter to the insinuations of your arousal in the email. Your words make me cry for joy at having found such a wonderful and caring man. Your words give me hope and peace and are the expression of your soul. Thank you for sharing your innermost thoughts and your letters to Judy with me. I am deeply moved and await our reunion with breathless anticipation. Signed, Carole. Peter wrote, May I say I feel humbled by the one with the magic, saying I am the one with the magic. It is your noises that I miss. It is your passionate reception of sexual stimulation that I cherish. It is good to have my son with me, but again, I would rather be with you, working each day, looking forward to our meals, our soaking relaxation, and then our union. My utmost thanks goes to the God that rewarded me with such a quality woman as you for my love, my plaything, my companion. I am just back from Costco, having bought a $179 printer. I am anxious to turn that one room into a dual his and hers office. It would seem the wall you were on would be yours, and the wall to the right as you walk in would serve me. I need to have a place to go place my things in some sort of an organized fashion, with ever grateful help. Please be extremely horny later today. And so what he's talking about there is the office that I currently have at my home was a 10-foot by 10-foot bedroom, and he installed kitchen counter cabinets in a big U shape all the way around the room. So there's closets on one side, and then the other three sides of the room have these countertops that are like Formica countertops. And then underneath, they're stacked. Those countertops are stacked over, or not stacked actually, they're hanging on the wall, but they're right over top of file cabinets. So I've got all the file cabinets underneath, and then there's a place for your knees to go in different places. So he built that for that space that we were talking about there. This is my email back to him. Dear Peter Kent, in Romans 8:31, the passage that gives me strength is, if God be with us, who can stand against us? I feel the hand of God ever on my shoulder, and his voice ever in my ear, and this has given me strength to be all that I am. I walk with grace, and the peace this gives me is perceptible to even the least perceptive. I can control my actions, my thoughts, and my reactions because I am responsible to my Creator. I feel comfortable with my life because I feel like I am in control of all that happens. Whether it be good or bad, it's my life because of my choices. It is at great peril that I hand over my life to another mortal. You felt the exchange of spirit, the flow of energy that we have shared these past weeks. By this, I know that you can understand, at the deepest level, that what I am about to say to you is not the romantic poetry of a love-struck woman, but comes from my soul. The empathy I feel for you is the same as for my own body and emotional well-being. I can feel this in your presence, and know that before long I will feel you more intensely from a distance. I could feel the cuts on your hands and the ache in your arms as if they were my own. In touching you, I seek to draw out your pain, to let it pass from your body to mine and then away. Despite your positive words that would indicate total confidence, I can feel your anxiety. These sensitivities to you feel so much like my own that I am not sure where you stop and where I begin. As you go through your day, I need you to remember that if you are going too fast and hurt yourself, you are hurting me. If you bleed, it is my life force that spills out. If you are reckless in your choices, it is me who will suffer. If you lose touch with God's guidance, it is I who will be lost. Being complete in each other is wonderful, miraculous joy, but it is a responsibility that cannot be taken lightly. Please be gentle with me. Signed, Carole. And then this is apparently another email later in the day. Dear Peter Kent, you asked me a question that I didn't know how to answer. This was the question he asked. It's in parentheses. If you had not been raped, who would you be now? There is no way to say with certainty, because a quarter of a century of other things have happened that brought me to where I am today. But if I could turn back time and pick up the night before that happened, I can imagine how my life would have progressed based upon the trajectory it was on. I was in love with a man that made me feel like I was in the presence of God. Mike Belcher was in college, studying to be a preacher in the Church of Christ, and he was from Bowling Green, Kentucky. He was not an attractive person, but people flocked to him, and you could just see his aura from all the way across the college campus. I didn't know what an aura was then, but to me it was like seeing a man surrounded by angels. The college girls all just loved him, but I was the one he asked to marry him. When he found out how young I was 13 or 14 at the time, he was willing to wait. I knew that being a preacher's wife would be hard because, as I explained to you earlier, we don't pay our preachers much of anything so that we can be sure that their motives are pure. I would likely need to learn a trade so that I could support both of us, and I wanted to be a veterinarian. It was my plan to finish school early and get into a good college on a scholarship. I was a straight A student and in the 6th grade had taken the entrance exam to Florida College and passed with the highest score on record. This was also true on my real estate and mortgage license exams. I am great at tests. My grandmother had polished me for public speaking from the time I was 6, so I was comfortable with people and felt like I would be the perfect preacher's wife. I was teaching myself the Grand Diplômé School of Cooking course at home and did all of my family's cooking and cleaning and was raising my brother because my parents were working all the time. After school, I worked in a gift shop on North Florida Avenue in Tampa that my grandfather set up for me when I was 9, and later for my father's lawn care business every day after work. I was also responsible for keeping our 10-acre yard up for my family and for my grandmother next door. I was loving and trusting and felt like the sky was the limit because all my life my mother and grandmother had told me so. I loved Mike Belcher and was in awe of his knowledge of the Bible and his ability to share that knowledge. I loved that he was so comfortable in his relationship with God. I had always been that way, but even at a young age noticed that most people didn't feel that intimate connection to their Creator. When he was in college here, I was with him whenever I wasn't working and felt safe at his side. When he was home in Kentucky, I wrote him love letters and poems and longed for the school year to resume. After I was raped, I quit writing him and wouldn't take his calls. I couldn't tell him why. I was so ashamed. I couldn't tell anyone. Later, after I had left home, my mother said that he came looking for me, but she didn't know where I was. I became an alcoholic and a chain smoker, and even though my work ethic stayed strong, I was only a shadow of who I had been until I got pregnant with Jamie at the age of 19. My husband locked me in a room of our house for what seemed like weeks. It was probably only days until I dried out. I never drank again, except for the occasional glass of wine. I wouldn't allow a Bible in the same house, and I didn't talk to God for 13 years. My first husband, also named Mike. It's kind of weird that I wrote it that way. My husband, also named Mike, who I hated, discovered that my parents really loved him for dragging me to church, and I did it while we were married, but I was unfaithful to him and to God for the 8 years we were married. It was in the mid to late 80s after my divorce that Wally nagged me back to church. Wally just kept telling me he was praying for me and that God loved me and one day I would come to know the Lord. He didn't know how close God and I had been before I screwed up. I couldn't deter Wally, despite having the foulest mouth and mannerism toward his unwelcome suggestions that I pray. Wally belongs to a liberal religious group that doesn't follow the Bible as closely as we do, and now our arguments are all about whether or not you have to be baptized to be saved and that sort of thing. He has been a great friend, and I would spend more time with him, except that it makes his wife uncomfortable, and she is a good person. During this time, Don had taken on a girlfriend while I was dating the psychologist. We were still working together, and Don was still married to his first wife, so things were strained. In the late 80s, Don's wife divorced him, and I had to choose between him and the swinging psychologist, Dr. R. I stood out in the sun, raised my face to God, and prayed. He told me to leave them both, and I tried. But Don was persistent, and in time I gave in. This turning point of praying, however, was the beginning of my journey back to who I was before. I came to trust God's guidance. I really should have run from them both, and tried with renewed dedication to learn all that he had written for me. I knew my weakness for Don was not in keeping with what was expected of me, but I vowed to do everything else right and pray for forgiveness and mercy. I was faithful to both Don and God until Don's disappearance. This tragedy has brought me even closer to God, and I had hoped that perhaps now, thinking that my best sexual years were behind me, I would be able to abstain and focus entirely on serving my Lord. After a year of celibacy, I couldn't take it any longer and began seeking a mate that would see me through this period of time that I could not remarry. When that mate asked me to marry him, the week before the World Trade Center bombings, I reevaluated all that I had settled for and found that I was unwilling to commit the rest of my life to something I really didn't want. What I really wanted was to be back at the place in my life when I was happy and content with where my life was going. I broke up with him, citing religious differences as my reason, because he did not know God and he had no desire to seek him. I placed the ad with Match.com looking for a man who was committed to making a difference and who knew, or at least was searching, for God. You were the third response that I met with. You were the only one that fit what I was looking for. The Bible says that God will not tempt us and that he will not allow us to be tempted beyond what we are able to withstand. So I don't know why you're in my life. I can't say that I believe God would bring me to an undeniable temptation to disobey his law. I know that my choice to be with you is contrary to God's word. But again, I can only hope that he will forgive this transgression and be understanding of my desire to build toward an acceptable relationship. The healing I am able to impart to the cats in my care far exceeds any satisfaction that I would have thought possible in a veterinary career. I have lived a life that makes me an unacceptable candidate as a preacher's wife, and no longer see that as a goal. I do appreciate my ability to have overcome the obstacles in my life, and I feel good about who I am, but I believe that even the appearance of impropriety can be a stumbling block to others who don't know the whole story, and I would not want to cause anyone to distrust God's word because they thought me to be a hypocrite. My mother said something insightful about people who say they won't go to church because of the hypocrisy of some of the members. My mother said something insightful about people who said they won't go to church because of the hypocrisy of some of the members. Quoting, "I'd rather spend this short lifetime in church next to a hypocrite than all of eternity in hell with them." That being said, a lot of people are not as understanding or forgiving, and for that reason I have never even asked to join the local church that I attend. I don't want to put anyone in the position of having to explain how Carol Lewis could be the member of a Church of Christ. I see great hope in pursuing this relationship with you. You are loving, giving, and healing to me in so many ways. I was most touched last night when I began crying and you held me close and told me to let it out. I have been asked to stuff it inside my whole life because people don't typically know how to deal with the pain of another and try to make it stop before they become too uncomfortable. I have seen 3 people to their deaths with cancer, and they all said the same thing, that no one else knew how to just be there for them. You know how to accept me as I am, and how to be supportive of what I need without my having to ask. I was up all night thinking about your response to me at such a vulnerable moment in my life and was deeply moved. Having recounted the event made it as real as if it had happened yesterday, and the only way I could force those awful images from my mind was to keep reminding myself of how kind you were to me in hearing me out and not judging me on the naivete of a 14-year-old. I felt unconditional love from you, and that is new to me. I have often given it, but never received it. I have cried through this whole letter and have to go to lead a staff meeting. You have just called me from Costco, and unlike my usual way of being, I want to keep you on the line. I didn't want to hang up. I appreciate that you shared with me yesterday about your family and your feelings. I love you more with every new thing I learn about you. I love that you have taken a leadership role in my spiritual life on something as simple as praying with me. I thank God silently that we have found each other, but I do not express it aloud as you have, because I do not believe it is right for a woman to lead a man in prayer or any other form of worship. Your ease in addressing God is encouraging to me and tells me a lot about the kind of man you are. I am in awe of you, Peter Kent. With heartfelt love, Carol.